Good evening. So my question is related to the last part of your question. There's this perception that a woman's emotional quotient impacts her career and her leadership. There's also this perception that, there's always a clash for
there's
women.
Always?
There's always a clash.
Between
life, family, career, and everything for a woman. What are your thoughts on that?
My question is whose perception it is. If it is not your perception, then forget about it. Why are you worrying about everybody else's perception? What is your perception? If you don't feel there's a clash, how does anybody else's perception matter?
They also say that an extreme work
You're
pressure.
saying they. Who's they?
People, or in books it's written, or they
Okay.
say that
What do they say?
extreme work pressure wears a woman down more so than a man.
I don't think so. These are huge generalizations. I can show you men who cannot take work pressure, and I can show you women who can take a lot of work pressure. So I think we tend to have these overly simplistic generalizations which have to do with gender, and frankly, a lot of these things don't have to do with gender. I can show you very, very sensitive men, and I can show you very insensitive women. So all of us have to have, a certain quotient of intelligence, a certain quotient of empathy, otherwise we'd be robots. So emotion, rationalism, all of that is part of our individual makeup. And there are some things that some people are more sensitive to than others, but that's okay. All of us are not the same. I might see somebody begging on the road and feel nothing, and somebody else might see somebody begging on the road and feel something. But if both of us end up not doing anything about it, how does it matter?
So the results.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
My questions are in context to what you already spoke, and I just wanted a bit of closure because nobody else asked that question.
Sure.
One is regarding where you don't need to achieve success in everything you do continually. In that context, I'd like to know of any case or any instance in your work where you didn't achieve the desired success, and what you would have done differently. That is one, the first question. And the second one is regarding your inspiration, Gandhiji, as to what are the principles or lessons you learned from Gandhi which you apply to your leadership life?
So disappointment, several. When you've had a long 30+ year in operations, there are many new products we launched which did not succeed. But I take that in my stride. It's like the analogy that I used earlier, that, if I'm Federer, I don't always end up winning the Wimbledon or anything else. So I think when you are in a profession, whether you're a sports person, a musician, a dancer, a corporate person, a doctor, anybody, you have to take success and failure in your stride. Now, failure sounds too big, but, nothing is really a failure. I mean, what is a failure? A failure is something which didn't work the way you expected it to work. It's not the end of the world. So, who was it who said, I think Churchill is what it said, the ability to stand up and run even faster every time you've fallen is what contributes success. The problem with failure is that if you take it too much to heart and say, oh my God, I'm never going to try this again, you will never succeed. So failure is good if it urges you to do things differently, if it urges you to become even more resolved and more determined in what you want to do. Sometimes things fail because you haven't done them well, and you must have the ability to debrief failure just as you debrief success and say, what could I have done differently? So I think learning from failure and success is actually more important than the failure or the success. So what do sports people do? They video their games and they say, okay, you know, out of all the serves I made, you know, errors in so many serves and I did well in so many other serves. So how do I improve my serve? That is what practice is all about. What do great dancers do? Whether they are Indian classical dancers or ballet dancers, they tape themselves. Then they look at that video and they say, okay, I made a mistake here. If I do this differently, it will improve. So practice, discipline, rehearsal is very important, whether you are a sports person, a dancer, a corporate person, or anybody else. So that's one thing. Your second question was about, you know, what lessons have I learned from? You know, it's not that I've sat down and studied, you know, Gandhiji or whatever, but I do get inspired by his determination, his clarity of thought, his ability to take big ideas and put them across in very compelling ways. These were not slogans, these were calls to action. The sincerity of purpose, his resoluteness, his simplicity more than anything else, and for someone who followed his moral core, his principles, and nothing would come in the way of sacrificing those principles. I think those are things that I admire about him. Yeah.
Ma'am, people often say have no expectations from others. In your journey, did you ever expect anything from anybody, either professionally or personally?
No, of course you expect. You expect the people you work with to do their work. You expect, you know, you expect people to be responsible for what they do. So having no expectations is not that, okay, you know, I'm going to go to work and if nobody shows up for work, that's fine. That is not having no expectations. Of course you have to have expectations.
Maybe you feel a particular person need to work in a particular way, or maybe some outcome you expect from a particular person and it doesn't happen. It usually, from everybody we expect something.
We must expect something. I mean, if you've got, you know, from your head of HR, you must expect that that person is going to find you the best people and so on and so forth. So no expectations is not a good thing. We have to have expectations. I'm not sure where you got the no expectations. I'm not sure I said have no expectations.
No, you never said that.
Yeah. So I have a lot of expectations. I have a lot of expectations for people who work with me, for people who work for me, because without expectations, how are people going to, I think what you're referring to is more of, you know, the emotional side of expectations. Yeah. Now, you know, we are not in some, I don't know, I want to choose my, you know, I don't want to be incorrect, but, you know, we are not in some spiritual class where we are talking about abandoning this work and finding our nirvana without expectations. You know, we are all creatures of this world. Of course, this world cannot work without expectations. You know, we expect the plane to leave on time, we expect the bus to come on time, we expect the streets to be clean. We must have expectations, because if we don't have expectations, how do we achieve anything? So I'm a great one for, you know, expectations, my own and other people's.
And how do you ensure that your expectations are met every time?
You cannot ensure, you only can create the environment. And who says that your expectations are the best expectations? In a work environment, I think the expectations are shared. We all come to work to deliver a certain result. And those expectations that we will sell so much, we will spend so much money, whatever it is, you know, those are the business results that you want to impact. And those expectations have to be made very clear. Because if people are not clear about what they are expected to contribute, it is impossible for them to contribute. Then your expectations will never be met. So expectations have to be spelled out very clearly, very simply. I must know what my responsibility is in the work that I'm doing. And your understanding of my responsibility and my understanding of my responsibility has to be the same. Very often in organizations, things don't happen the way you expect them to happen because I'm expecting something which I've never shared with you. You're expecting something which you've never shared with me, and therefore both of us can never be happy about anything. So as a leader, you have to be very clear in terms of expectations. No, the onus is on everybody. See, this is another thing. Onus is not only on you. Onus is on everybody who's coming to work. Onus is on everybody who has a responsibility. At the end of the day, as a leader, you have the overall responsibility, for your people, for your business, for your whatever, because you're making the tough calls. But there is an expectation of a certain work ethic. There is an expectation that if work starts at 9 o'clock, everybody will be there at 9 o'clock. There is a certain expectation all of you had saying that this event will start at 3:20 and it had to start at 3:20. I'm sure all of you had a certain expectation on what I would say. Some of you will be happy, some of you might go away unhappy saying it wasn't what I thought it would be. So we all have expectations and you must have expectations.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think I can safely now ask the last question being about you yourself personally. How do you see yourself in the future? What next is it for yourself? Have you planned something up? Is there something, like you moving on, growing in the industry, moving on to bigger issues? What else can we see about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people who sort of creates my own transformation plan every few years. For a long time it was, moving to different countries, taking up different roles. One of the reasons I decided to step out of a full-time corporate job was it wasn't allowing me to do all the other things that I wanted to do. And, so I had a plan for myself, which is what I'm doing now. So I don't have one full-time job, but as I say, I have full-time many things that I'm doing, which is what I've always wanted to do. So I'm actually spending my time partly between the corporate world and partly the development sector. So in the corporate world, through being on boards of global companies. So I sit on the board of a company in Switzerland, on a FTSE 100 board in London. I'm also I've got a 2-year assignment with the United Nations on the Scaling Up Nutrition Initiative. I've just taken over as the chairperson of GAIN, which is a Swiss foundation called the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. I'm on the board of IIM Bangalore and so on and so forth. So I'm really spending my time between the corporate world through independent directorships, some advisories, as well as the development sector, largely in the area of nutrition. And also spend my time doing what I'm doing now, which is really, talking either to students or to companies or whatever, sharing and learning. Every time I come and talk, I learn something new, which is why it's about, so it's not just about my coming and talking to you. I learn from your questions, I learn from these interactions, and that is the way I keep myself sort of current in many different spheres and many different activities.
One question that I would definitely like to ask, especially since you spoke about being on the board. There's a lot of noise today in the country that there must be women on the board. Ficci Ladies organization itself is working on that too, trying to get people ready on the board. Is there something that, as a country, we are doing something but not doing right, or we need to do more to get women board ready. And the other aspect is most women, including me sitting in this audience here, belong to either small, medium, or large enterprise family businesses. Mostly it is family businesses. Irrespective of academic qualifications and experience, how would you sort of guide us to get our member fraternity to be board ready, or at least in that direction?
So a couple of things. One is it's now been made, it's mandatory for companies of a certain size, as per the company's bill of 2013, to have at least one woman board member. And I personally think it's a good thing. And the reason for that is that, women make up 50% of our population. And, sooner or later, I think people have realized that not having women participate on boards is actually keeping away a lot of very, very good talent from the corporate world. So it's a good thing. How it is implemented is very important. If it is just tokenism that I'm just going to put, someone who's not, so it is not. Now, it's not just with women. It just happens to come into sharper focus when it is women. So, when I put my son on the board, nobody questions that I've put my son on the board. But when I put my daughter on the board or my wife on the board, everybody thinks there's something funny. We simply have to ignore those things. I think it's not worth arguing. What women have to do is really to make sure that, when you get onto a board, you are competent. It's like nobody's going to give you a job if you're incompetent. Being on the board comes with a lot of responsibility. You need to understand what it means to be on the board, because you are personally liable for a lot of things that may go wrong in the company. So, how to get women ready for board positions? I think there are lots of initiatives that organizations like Spencer Stuart, other people are doing. I think it is a good thing. A lot of companies have not met their requirement of getting women on boards. Over the next 2 or 3 years, we'll see a lot more demand for women. And I think women like you should jump on the bandwagon and give your names to some of the recruiting companies and headhunting companies and say, we are available to be on the board. And I think it'll take a few years for it to, like anything which is new takes time, I think it'll take a few years for that to get into it. But I think it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Okay, thank you very much.
Ma'am, thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your practical tips to grow our organizations and businesses. Now I request our chairperson, Samia Alam Khan, to kindly hand over the memento to Ms. VInita Bali. Gitika Chadha, our program convener, kindly give it to Samia, please. I now invite our YFLO Senior Vice Chairperson, Ms. Nidhi Swarup, to please give the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Great leaders don't set out to be a leader. They set out to make a difference. It's never about the role, it's always about the goal. This quote summarizes the essence, I think, of today's talk by our dynamic speaker. Ms. Bali, YFLO is honored and humbled to have you here today sharing your wisdom on the role of women and the importance and essence of women in the corporate world. Thank you so much for being here and guiding us through this. I would like to offer our special thanks to the governing body members, past chairs of FLO and YFLO, present committee members of FLO and YFLO for gracing this event. At this point, I would like to just mention that we are very grateful. Ms. Kavita Reddy has agreed and taken up the task of being the social media head for YFLO. So we look forward to hearing a lot from you. Thank you so much, Park Hayat and media, for helping us out, for giving us such a nice venue and being such good hosts to the hotel. And also the members, without you, no event can be successful. Thank you all so much. Last but not the least, I would like to I'd like to thank Ms. Chitra Badruka. She was really generous and helped us by sponsoring the cupcakes by Delicioso Exotic Baking. Thank you all. I'd like to invite you all for the high tea, and I call the YFLO and FLO chairpersons and the past members for photos, please.